Back on TYT Sports, Jason and Robin Black from the Fight Network here with you. As the year comes to a close, and this could be up on January 1st, so Happy New Year. If not, it's almost Happy New Year. We're time to talk about the fights that we would like to make for 2017, because the UFC, as we were discussing in our UFC 207 preview, has had one hell of a 2016. On record, it's one of their best years ever, and we might look back and it might be their best year ever, but we would like to think that it can only grow and get bigger from this point on. So, Robin, I'm going to ask you point blank, what are a couple of the fights that you would love to see for 2017?
You're talking to such the wrong guy, man. I just want to see
you
every
see
fight.
all the fights.
I just want to see every combination of artists that we can see. But top of my head, there's 4 guys at lightweight, and I want to see them all fight each other.
Yes.
Khabib and Tony Ferguson, which they're rumoring for UFC 209. So that I got to see, man. I mean, it's a fascinating. I was talking about it with Ramdeen today, and as they move in from the outside, Tony really pieces you up at distance, and different is good these days. Whatever your training partners are doing, it starts to become like a curriculum. You start to be familiar, or there's only these options. Anything that's new is harder for your brain to process. Tony's new. Tony fights new. Tony's hard to predict. So outside, he pieces you up. And Khabib is able to use off-rhythm timing and timing with forward pressure to get in and get a hold of you. But to do that, he's got to pass through this middle zone. And there, Tony's got this snap-down game where, like old-school wrestling, snap down to a front headlock kind of position and works all kinds of stuff. It's a danger zone for you. So he wants to invite you in. But then if Khabib can get through that, he's so dominant in the wrestling and so dominant on top. But then Tony is really good off his back and really different off his back. So all the way out and all the way down, Tony is interesting. And in that middle zone, it's interesting. And they don't, that one is a really cool fight from a fight perspective. And then, of course, that leaves Conor and actually, I'd like to see Conor and Khabib and Conor and Tony as well.
I've actually thought that I have a slight conspiracy that the UFC themselves is ducking the Khabib-McGregor fight. Not McGregor. I think McGregor really will fight anybody. I don't think there's really anybody that he's sitting there going like, I refuse. I think that he's got that kind of, whatever you want to call it, heart of a champion, fight anybody. However, I do have a quick Khabib story for you, because at UFC 205 in Madison Square Garden, got to meet Khabib. He was coming out of his press conference, and he needed to find a bathroom. So he's walking towards like the coffee downstairs in like the media room, and I'm just standing there. And of course he comes up and he goes bathroom, and I go, oh yeah, here, I'll show you. So I walk him upstairs, and I'm kind of waiting for him outside for a minute because I would like to catch a word with him for just a couple seconds. And I say, I usually say to a lot of people, at the end, like brother, as in like friend, how you doing, term of endearment, whatever you want to call it. So I go, hey man, you had a great fight. That was an awesome fight, brother. And he looks at me and he stops and he turns and he goes, I am not your brother. And I go, oh my God, I think I just totally pissed off Khabib. And after a couple seconds, he smiles and he puts me in like a minor chokehold as a joke. But for Khabib, a minor chokehold to a UFC fighter in my situation was, I'm going to die at Madison Square Garden.
It's true. That's cool. It's funny because it's like he gets the idea of what the Russian, the American or Canadian implication of what the I am not your brother, and then plays it for a gag. That's really cool. But man, so him and Conor, that to me is the #1 fight. That's the one I'm most interested in. Khabib's the best at murdering you when there's no space. Seriously. Just take all the space away and beat you up. And Conor has been the best at beating you out at distance. Eddie Alvarez just destroyed him at distance. Jose Aldo drew him into the space and knocked him unconscious. I mean, those two things, you got to see how that works out together. But I disagree with you on the conspiracy theory, and I'll tell you why. And the 2 words, Nate Diaz. Biggest fight they've ever done is the rematch after Conor lost a fight. You know what I mean? These guys are in the business of making money. They're not in the business of protecting. They'll protect things that make money. No doubt about it, like Apple computers will, or any other company will.
It's a business.
But in this business, Conor McGregor losing is big money. Ronda Rousey, she's back. If Ronda had run through Holly Holm and run through 1 or 2 more, nobody would be paying money to see Ronda fight Amanda Nunes. Nobody would be buying it. If I said that it was a very close fight on Fight Network, to our audience, they'd call me a shill. they'd say, "Oh, you're just trying to convince people." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but it's the
that's
same
of
fight.
course, yeah.
But now it's huge. Now it's a huge fight. So Conor losing to Khabib is good for business, just like Conor losing to Nate was good for business. So when things are good for business, the business will do them, and I think that's why the idea that they don't want to have that it doesn't hold water because they want to make money. That's what all businesses do.
I stand corrected. I like that. I like that as always. Some other fights that I think I would like to, that at least I would like to see for next year.
Yeah.
I would like to see Wonderboy get back into the octagon with Woodley again. I think that's going to. It seems like that's going to happen. And maybe I was because I was there. I had a little bit of a different perspective, but I like the Warrior matchup. At all costs, I think it usually tends to be, usually on the surface, some of the most fun fights for every fan in the world to watch. And we saw that with McGregor versus Diaz twice. We saw it 2 times, really the second time. So a third time, we know what we're in store for. So there's really not an expectation. It's more like, well, these guys are really going to go at it for 3, 4, 5, make it a 7-round fight. They'll still stand by the end of it. They're not going down. But I think that Wonderboy and Woodley have proven that they can kind of go at it at least for the same degree as the McGregor-Diaz status of style in terms of the Warrior mentality. And again, the fact that Wonderboy pulled himself out of that situation in the first place is still one of the most remarkable things that at least I'm going to remember from the year of 2016. And also, we got to go all the way back because Lawler versus Condit was the greatest gift we got. It was, January 3rd of this year?
Yeah. True. Lawler Condit to start the year, and then Cub Swanson Duho Choi to end the year.
Yeah.
That's pretty spectacular.
It really was.
From an action standpoint, from an art standpoint. I think Lawler versus Wonderboy I love to see it. Yeah, and you make a good point. It's a draw in terms of what they accomplished as far as winning moments, but who did something more than that? And the person, they both did. Tyron Woodley dished it out more in those moments, and Wonderboy took it and came back. Yeah. And that's a growing moment. You know, when you take it and come back, when you handle that and walk through it, that is a moment of growth for a guy like Wonderboy. He had more to learn in that fight. He needed to, what he would get from experiencing the speed with which Tyron Woodley closes distance, that to me was the big unpredictable nature. It's like, yes, we know he knows how to hurt you as you come forward, but Woodley with his skill, and people always talk about athleticism when you see a guy with muscular legs like that, but it's his skill mixed with his athleticism. That had to be experienced, but now it's been experienced. And yes, the feel of Wonderboy and the feel of his game, but he changes a lot. I truly think Wonderboy learned more in that fight than Woodley did, but I really would like to see it again. Woodley is a spectacular fighter and a spectacular athlete. People seem to not like him because he wants to make money, and they don't think he has the leverage to do so on whatever level. They're like, oh, why are you asking for Nick Diaz? He doesn't want to fight. Or why do you want money fights when you just got the title? That bothers people. It bothers the audience, but he's a spectacular fighter.
Absolutely. So 2017 should be a decent year for the UFC.
I think so. I mean, Cain Velasquez is injured for 209, but I'd sure love to see him fight Stipe. You know who else? I'd love to see John Jones fight Stipe Miocic, man, at heavyweight. That'd be amazing.
We all want to see John Jones get back in the octagon. The only person who's stopping John Jones from getting back in the octagon is John Jones.
I know. It's true. It's true, but I think he'll be back this year.
Yes,
so we'll
I do too. I think we'll see him back in the octagon. I think the second half would be great to really kind of wind down. So as always, Robin, it's fantastic talking to you when it comes to the UFC. You're a brilliant mind with this, and I encourage everybody who watches the UFC coverage on TYT Sports as we grow with it. If you want some great insight, please go to the Fight Network. The website, everything's in the description box below. You can follow Robin on Twitter at Robin Black MMA. I'm sure he'll be live tweeting a lot of UFC 207 too. Robin, have a happy New Year, happy holidays, and we look forward to seeing you in the new year.
Thanks, you too, brother. It is truly my pleasure to hang out and talk fights with you anytime.
All right, good seeing you, man.